It's time for EdTech Mondays, brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.
Welcome to the EdTech Monday Nigeria show, brought to you by the MasterCard Foundation in partnership with Co-Creation Hub Limited. EdTech Mondays is a platform to facilitate critical conversations on the use of technology for teaching and learning. It brings together critical stakeholders including policymakers, EdTech entrepreneurs, teachers, and parents. My name is Abigail Anazamak, your host on this show, and I would like to say a big welcome to all our listeners. Thank you for tuning in. And if you have been listening to us over the past number of months, thank you for listening again. It's great to be back on the show. And our topic for today is evaluating the impact of government policies on EdTech adoption. As technology continues to shape the global landscape, the integration of technology for teaching and learning in Nigeria continues to grow. Like many other countries, Nigeria has taken significant steps to integrate technology into its education system, notably through the 2019 policy on ICT in education, which outlines strategies to enhance ICT integration into the education sector. Despite the progress made with the implementation of the policy since 2019, challenges such as inadequate access to infrastructure, connectivity, electricity, digital learning devices, skilled personnel, and qualitative monitoring and evaluation mechanisms still hinder the widespread adoption of EdTech across the country. Therefore, policies that favor the scale, accessibility, and affordability of EdTech are needed now more than ever. On the show today, we'll be evaluating the 2019 National Policy on ICT in Education and its impact on schools' EdTech readiness and use across Nigeria. The discussion will also highlight strategies that promote increased adoption of EdTech and recommend required policy moves that support the growth of Nigeria's EdTech industry. So our guest today is none other than the delectable Mrs. Folashade Adefisayo. You are delectable, ma. She's the principal consultant and CEO of Leading Learning Limited, an education consulting firm established in 2014. She has nearly 40 years of experience in banking operations, organizational restructuring, human resource management, international trade, and education. She has served as the Honorable Commissioner for Education in Lagos State, Nigeria from 2019 to 2023, supporting the governor in revolutionizing education. She's an education activist, passionate about students learning, school transformation, and teacher training, and she has also volunteered with various non-governmental organizations and government agencies to improve education in Nigeria. It's good to have you on the show today, ma.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. So we'll be delving straight into the questions, and I would be taking a little look at the 2019 National Policy on ICT in Education, which focuses on human capital development, makes provision for infrastructure, research, and development, amongst other provisions. And I want to ask you, with everything that is in that policy, where do we stand today with implementation?
Well, like you said in your preamble, implementation really has been, it's not as good as it should be. And for many reasons, and you mentioned the challenges as well. So I think where we stand is, it's a good document. It's a great document to consult, but it hasn't changed the practice of teaching and learning across our schools. Not much anyway. Maybe a few private schools, but it hasn't. And it's also for those challenges and a little bit more because they are the technicalities that I think were not thought about. I mean, you can give people data, you can give them devices, but even the curriculum of the country does not support teaching and learning through the integration of technology. It doesn't. It just doesn't. It's like, there was something we tried to do in Lagos State when we tried to change the schemes of work. We did the schemes of work where for each topic, we had things like integration with core skills of 21st century, like creative thinking, problem solving, and so on. And then there was a column for digital links so that teachers could also consult that. But again, that's a big problem because it's not in the country's curriculum, so it cannot be put into schemes of work easily. Textbooks are not, and so on, are still king, and they are not integrating this way of teaching and learning either. And teachers, the key ingredient, are not taught the skill of integrating technology into your classroom. It looks like something that is done by science and tech, but not by the education sector itself. So it looks like something you want them to do, and something they probably would like to do, but they are not going to do it because direction for them is just not part of the document.
Thank you so much, Ma, for touching on something as fundamental as the curriculum. And I would want to ask, you talked about the fact that it's good on paper, implementation has not really been robust, maybe in some private schools. For where you have seen success, what factors do you think facilitated those kind of successes with EdTech adoption and improved learning outcomes?
Can we say something that was quite devastating for the whole world? I think the COVID menace. When COVID came and it was clear that people are going to stay at home, it gave a big impetus, the integration of technology, because it was now clear that children would stay at home. The learning loss would be great. Social cohesion would break down and families would be in big trouble because of this. And so children needed an outlet. And I think this, so many private schools who had invested before were now able to kick this in and teach children in a lot of ways that they still remain relevant, integrating with technology. Integrating with technology is not necessarily teaching on Zoom, but it also means flipping the classroom, children doing research by themselves, the teacher teaching them communicating with their teachers, and so they just integrated a lot of habits and practices into the classroom. But unfortunately, after that, we've all relaxed again.
Yeah, thank you for that. You mentioned earlier as well that you tried during your tenure to try to revise the curriculum and make it more fit for 21st century learners, and that met some bottlenecks. I don't know if you would like to also share some other positive things that you're able to achieve during your time that you can recommend for more uptake and adoption.
Well, integration with technology, if it's talking about technology, in the primary schools, we're able to implement what we call the Eco Excel, which really means that we'll be able to put the schemes on a tablet for the teachers. So the teachers had the scheme together with recommendations for activities in the classroom. And so, because for me as an educationist, what always matters to me is how do we improve that interaction? How do we make teaching engaging, humorous, interesting, lively, so that the children totally enjoy what they are learning. So again, a lot of ideas on the tablet given to teachers to teach in the classroom. So across every school and every teacher at the primary level. I think that went well. The objective of that was not the tablet, really. The tablet was important, but it was our scheme. Again, so it forced us to look into the scheme. That what is the existing scheme of work? Because, after you design the curriculum, you now have to break it into terms, into days, and so on. And that's the scheme. So while working with the scheme, we're able to say, look, how do we integrate all these activities? So there are many ways to do things, and we're able to put it on the tablet. So I think that for me, I think was a very interesting one. And also the way we were able to improve WAEC results, I think that took a lot of work because it took more than 20 strategies. That is why as an educationist I still believe that you must have a plethora of strategies. So when you use technology, then you use the teacher's knowledge, then you use the community, then you use the, all the facilities around them, the way life is around them, so that they are able to learn in any way that they want to. For instance, if you are doing a classroom and when they decorate a class, decorating a class is not to look beautiful. It's so that the walls speak.
Yeah.
So when you look up, you learn something. When you look here, you learn something. When you look at the floor, you learn something as well. So I think that's the kind of thing that we try to do with the secondary school, using technology as well, because we had some students who had who were able to get devices for. So we had portals online with quizzes and so on where they could do their work. We had the radio link, we had the TV, and so using really whatever technology we could to support their learning. So really a lot of activities went on, and I think it's still there.
I am very impressed by everything that you've talked about, and especially trying to make learning look like living. You don't have to, for students now, with the kind of innovation that you introduced, learning does not have to be something that we consciously do. You made it so unconscious, so natural that learners are picking skills, but they are not so aware. It's not a forced environment for them to say, you must learn how to communicate today. Yeah. So that flexibility is really important for 21st century learners. I'm trying to think about a scenario in my head where the Nigerian government is finally ready to adopt innovation in education. So what would your advice be? They've come to consult you.
What would I ask for? I sound like a broken record, but I always go back to the teacher. How do we train our teachers? How do we resource them? How do we reward them? How do we treat them? I would always, because I think that innovation has to happen in the classroom. A child at a time, a class at a time, a school at a time. But to do that, that means you need teachers who are superbly skilled. And that is why if they ask me that what would I look at, I would say, let's look at how we train our teachers. Let's look at giving that profession the glamour that it deserves. Because there's nobody who wasn't taught by a teacher. And so how do we, that's where I would hit it first. And then I would now use the power of technology to train them, to help them to teach in the classroom, to get them to do a lot of researching, to get them to understand how to communicate, with each other, with students, with parents, with the community, and so on, so that whatever I teach them, they can use it. What is most important is that I get them curious, I get them inventive, I get them excited about their own teaching and learning. And then we now give them the resources to perform. Because they'll be frustrated if you teach them all this and then they get to class and there's nothing,
Absolutely.
So again, I would innovate, especially hit teachers and then hit how they can deploy all possible resources to improve their craft. It's a craft.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would have loved to touch on how do we make the profession more glamorized. But before I go to that, if I still have the time, I want to talk about schools' EdTech readiness. What do you have to say about how schools should prepare themselves, should make themselves ready for EdTech adoption for public schools and also for private schools?
Well, for all, of course, there must be internet access, there must be data, there must be devices for the students, and there must be curriculum linkages and of course teachers too must be trained in the use and how they can deploy this technology for their own use. Let me give you a little example, maybe, and that's why I believe in using everything. I don't treat devices alone as technology. I think anything around you that you can use supports innovation in the classroom. Supposing you are teaching a simple topic like, body shapes. Olympics are coming. There are different body shapes for different sports.
Yeah.
The person throwing weights is going to be hefty. The person running long distance is slender.
Lanky.
So I've forgotten the name. Ectomorph, something morph, or some morph,
yeah.
or whatever.
Mesomorph,
So how do you teach that? You can teach it in such an interesting way. If I were to teach that, I'd probably play a video of 100-meter athletes running, of footballers playing, of this. So using technology. So I think that for me would be the innovation. How do I help teachers to, how do you get schools to be able to change the way we teach? I think for me, that's the greatest innovation of all, so that teachers see that this thing is so good, it's so powerful, it's so helpful, I think schools can be ready if they address all this. But if you don't address the software of it, that is the teachers, you are wasting money. There have been states that gave out tablets. Nobody used it.
You have a passion for decomposing edtech from that big and mighty technology and education to saying even as little as looking for videos, as little as just browsing pictures, images that
Yeah.
depict, teachers can be creative with their smartphones, with their tablets, while they still wait for the bigger devices to come
Yeah.
their way.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, what are the indicators that we can use to measure success or the effectiveness of EdTech? Sorry.
EdTech solutions should impact learning outcomes. They should impact learning outcomes by whatever way we measure learning outcomes. So at primary level, I'm not. Exams are important because, of course, you've done your correct. Did they learn physics? Did they learn chemistry? Did they learn biology? But I wish EdTech could also be involved in assessing other skills. I used to teach for an agency, the 21st century skills. So things like problem solving, innovation, creativity,
Critical thinking.
collaboration, critical thinking, things like that. And I wish there was a way that we could assess, because those are the skills for success. You can read anything anyway. Nowadays, just go to ChatGPT. Honestly, I'm even worried because it's even affecting me. Because someone said I should write a paper. I just said, Joe, let me find an essay. Once I just corrected a few things and fumbled down. And they thought I was very good. Then later I said, no, this thing is de-skilling me in one way or the other. So you can learn anything. But the skills you need to be successful, of collaboration, of partnerships, of thinking critically through issues, of solving the problems in our environment, they are skills that I hope that EdTech will soon begin to think about beyond just passing maths and English. I mean, that's wishful thinking.
But
it
we've
is
seen
possible.
examples of some schools who are beginning to adopt that.
It's
Maybe
possible,
not in
yeah.
Nigeria
Yeah.
yet, but some schools will say this is what your child had in your examination. But beyond that, over the term, we've measured their socio-emotional skills, and this is how they've scored. So that's really important. So let's go a little bit into policy. Now, I know policy may look like a jargon that we throw around, the most talked about, the least implemented. But if we were still to look at the policy aspect, what kind of policies do we require to advance the adoption of education technology in Nigeria?
Oh, of course. I mean, there are some things like that everybody knows, like the ones in the existing policy about what resources should be available, what kind of training people should have, what kind of data access and so on. But there are also other things, because you are talking about children, privacy, security, their safety online, confidentiality. Because I find that many schools have these things, but you don't know. I had a situation where someone came to report to me that these teachers don't know anything about these Zoom classes they are having. He was teaching. The children were actually watching a pornographic, because one of their classmates had an account where they could watch a pornographic movie. So while the poor teacher was talking on and on, all the children who were on the Zoom, I don't know how he did the teacher's
Manipulated.
He manipulated it, and all of them were watching the pornographic movie. So I think the safety and security of children, that's another policy guideline that I think is essential, because these are young people, and you've got to be careful with how we bring them up. And of course, I'd like policy guidelines on how, maybe I'd like something about, the curriculum is a policy guideline anyway, about how to integrate the power of technology into teaching and learning. I'd like us to include it in teacher training across all levels. That at all levels, teachers should at least be computer literate and be able to use their smartphone. Almost all teachers have smartphones nowadays. So at least, even if it's that basic level, but people should be able to use it to integrate in the classroom. And then, of course, there should be policies around things like LMS systems, relationship with parents, and so quite a lot, because schools are places where you have to create an emotionally and physically safe environment for everybody. So to ensure that everybody is safe, you have to have policies that address all the elements. That's the way I would look at it.
Thank you. That was very holistic. You touched on security and safety online and socio-emotional relationship between the schools and the students and even their own parents, and as well the teachers. Rounding up with that teacher part, how exactly would you want the teacher preparation system to be glamorized?
As long as teachers are not let me tell you, because I'm a teacher, so I talk in stories. A young man, one of my teachers years ago, told me he met this young girl and he really liked her. He wanted to marry her. But he was very worried because she kept saying, please don't tell my parents you're a teacher. He was going to meet her parents. So she kept saying, please don't tell them you're a teacher. Please don't tell them you're a teacher. Because she was sure that her parents would say, no, this is not a good person for my daughter. We can't have that. Teachers are so important. So it's how do we build their they too have self-esteem issues because society looks upon them as, the banker is more valuable. Who taught the banker banking? The EdTech person is more valuable. Who taught that person? Yeah. So we've got to, as a society, accept their primacy, their primary role, their primary position, and strengthen them so that they can play this. I mean, whether it's a teacher training, we have to up the ante. What we are teaching our teachers is very strange and totally at variance in what they meet in the classroom. So we have to teach our teachers how to carry themselves in the classroom. Because like I always tell my children, you're an expert. So a parent comes to you with this big jeep and he's saying some things. You to draw your own and ask him, what is the pedagogical implication? You take a step back because he doesn't even know what pedagogy means, not to talk of pedagogical implication, but so you're a professional. So we just have to do a lot as a whole society to make sure that teachers are respected, treated well, paid well, and that will always be my opinion, because you cannot do this thing without teachers. If you want, let children be learning on Zoom. We'll soon have a whole set of people who are zombies.
Well, thank you so much for that. That was very robust. As much as we are clamoring for increased adoption of EdTech, the place of teachers should not be left out, and they should be well-trained, well-equipped to meet the learning demands of the 21st century. Would love to hear from you, our listeners. What specific policy moves do you recommend to strengthen EdTech adoption further and support the development of Nigeria's EdTech sector? Send us an SMS or a WhatsApp message on 0703 165 0809. That is 0703 165 0809. You could also join our Telegram channel, EdTech Mondays Nigeria. It's been an amazing time on this episode of the EdTech Mondays show. I remain your host, Abigail Anazamak, and I look forward to another insightful conversation next Monday. Same time, same station. Until then, it's bye for now.
EdTech Monday is proudly brought to you by MasterCard Foundation and CC Hub.